I think she's someone. So, with that, I was asked to give you an introduction, but I think my introduction is going to start off with my number one question to you here. And I want you, we just jumped on the elevator, Helen. You got 2 minutes to answer this question.
Okay.
Who is Helen Chong?
Oh, Jesus. I mean, how do I answer that? There's this cheesy answer to say like, oh, I'm a real estate broker. I do residential and commercial, da, 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 da. I don't think this is what everybody wants to hear. But to give a snapshot, and I guess like based on the book, I came to this country when I was 18 alone. At the time, didn't really know my direction. I felt quite lost and just had this hope and also confidence that somehow America can change my life. And I was quite determined to come here to, even though it wasn't something that my parents wanted me to do. It was just kind of like, mom and dad, it's time for me to change our lives. I'm going to go and I'll figure it out. And then when I figure it out, I'll let you know. So that's kind of who I was. I would say I was very brave. As you grow older, I guess like everybody changes, right? And I would say that I'm now have a lot more I do things with a lot more calculated risk. So I don't think I can do what I did back in the days when I was 18, just jump on the plane and go to a country that I've never been to and not even knowing the language either. But I would say that I'm a person that's just very goal driven. If I want something, I would plan it ahead. It's like, I know I want to achieve this in 10 years. So now I need to start planning. That's kind of like I'm that kind of person. From personal life to professional life, even talking about having kids and stuff like that, I'd be like, okay, I know I want to have kids, start having kids at 32. So I need to do certain things before that. So that's kind of who I am.
Okay. That's kind of, you came up with a good segue in there, because my next question really was, how did you come up with the title of your book, Power to Change Lives? And I'll have to tell you, I missed out on this at first. I didn't notice the little person down here. Where am I pointing at?
Your fingers covering it.
Yeah, well, I'm doing it reverse here. So there's a little person down here, and I just noticed the maze to the little tiny home up there. And that makes sense to me because I read the book. But why don't you tell us how you came up with the title of that book?
Well, so throughout this process, I was working with a publisher, and we were trying to come up with the title. And they know the storyline is really about finding my way home, because I just felt lost the whole time, no matter it's personal life or financial life or professional life. And so we came up with so many different names about like, finding your way home. I don't know. It's like everything is something about home. And then I was like, you know what? I don't think this whole book, yes, at the end of the day, everybody's goal is to find your way home. But how do you get there? It's really about your mindset. And then, believe it or not, I have this name, Power to Change Lives, more than 10 years ago. I had actually registered a website domain, Power to Change Lives, more than 10 years ago, because at that time I kept thinking about I want to do something about health and wealth. And I was doing MLM, like, doing these health products. And at the same time, I'm like learning all these investment strategies. And somehow I came up with a name, Power to Change Lives. And then it went dormant for years. I would say at least 7 years. So all of a sudden I was like, that's it. It's power. I hope this book is giving people that power to change their lives. So that's how I came up with it.
That's great. Now, this was when I read the book, there's one of the first questions that popped out in my mind that I really wanted to get some detail was, let's talk about your spreadsheet on how to pick a husband. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you did to how you went through that process of deciding who you were married? Tell us about that story. I love it.
So in case you haven't read the book, there's this part that I I'm an analyst. I analyze things all the time, you meet so many people. I was in bad relationships before, and up to a point I was just feeling like, God, there's got to be a way to figure out who's your ideal person. So I came up with this, like, I thought it was really, I mean, all of my friends was just like, oh my God, this is it. I came with this whole spreadsheet. I was like, okay, I need to list out all the qualities that I want from a man. And went from if this person likes cat or not, if this person is same religion as me and tall, or if they are family oriented. And then each item I give a point value, like, if it's like very family oriented, 10 points. If they like cats, I give it 5 points. It's not as important as being family oriented. So it was like long list. And I just like started putting in all these points. And I scored every guy I know, including my ex-boyfriends at the time. And I was just like, oh, this is the reason why, this is not the right person for me. And then until I met my husband, and I scored him too. And I was like, dude, this guy, very low point. He's not the one. So I told him, I'm like, it's never going to work out.
Okay.
And it's very wrong spreadsheet. So
that leads me into the next question I have. And I got, behind every strong woman is a strong man. Tell us about John.
Oh my God. I think he's listening in. Well, he is, I mean, that John, when I met him, he actually just graduated from Naval Academy, and he was getting into Marine Corps. Never met a guy who was in the military and had no idea. I was so ignorant about military, was that I actually asked him this question while we were dating, was that, what are you going to do after military? I always see, this is a little bit embarrassing. It was just that I used to take buses to work, and we always passed by this veteran hospital. And I saw a lot of veterans riding the bus to the veteran hospital. And I just thought most people after the military life, they just really not going to make it in life, because that's all they knew. And he would just like look at me like really shocked. It's like, what are you talking about? There are a lot of successful people after they retire from the military. But long story short, shortly after we met, he went into war, and during our relationship, he went to Iraq 3 times. And I've seen people come back with PTSD, and then he just doesn't seem like he has that issue. And I was just like, okay, there's something wrong with you. But he has a really, really strong mindset. I mean, he's very confident. He knows what he wants. Maybe you can say he's stubborn. That's another word for knowing what you want and won't change his mind, but he's definitely very stubborn. But it's just like, and he's very disciplined. And it was just so different compared to any of the men I've met before, and especially in our early 20s. So I know that he knows that I'm always very ambitious. We may not have the same goal, but he's very supportive of what I want to achieve. And he knows that, for me wanting to achieve certain goals, he has to be supportive. And it's not easy, because it takes a lot of sacrifices for both of us. But yeah, he's been there for me during ups and downs. And he's really the person who helped me to gain my confidence. There would be no way for me to be able to talk like this 10 years ago before I met him. Well, I met him more than 10 years ago, but before I met him, I was just this really shy, very low self-confidence person. Was very afraid to talk to people other than my own race. So that he really brought that confidence out of me.
That's great.
Man, you make me talk about my husband. It's going to be nonstop.
Well, we won't go into all what you put him through to win your game. We won't talk. That's something that everybody will have to read in the book there. But let's go back to your beginnings, because for a person that was raised in the United States, your early life wasn't typical for what someone raised over here would normally see on that. There was quite a lot of changes. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, and then how that's really sculpted the values of what's important in life to you.
Well, so coming from Asia, and also probably because of my upbringing, the obstacles that we had to go through, I do feel that in a way, my goal was to come here to change my life, right? And I do see why. I mean, life over here is so good in America. And then, but then in Asia, when we were growing up, it was just, especially because my family went through a lot of hardship. We just had to be a lot more independent. Life is a lot more stricter back then. And in Asian culture, we have a certain ways of how do we even treat people, and how do we view life. Like hard work is almost like a no-brainer. It really does take a lot of, I would say, fight. You have to fight for your life. It's not something that's given to you. You have to fight for it. I think that's the mindset got me here, is that I don't expect, or never expected, anything to be handed to me. I knew that I had to work really hard to earn what I have. I'm not saying people here, I'm not saying American culture, people don't have to work hard. It's just that I feel like the environment is just so good. You have human rights, everything is like given to you. You get to enjoy a lot of things over here already. So I do see a difference between immigrants' mindset compared to maybe people who are born and grew up here. The mindset is a little different.
Now, when I read the book, I saw an underlying theme of constant sacrifice, and it's sacrifice seems to be inherent in the way you live. How are you able to do that? Because as you probably agree, most native born United citizens think their sacrifice is if they have to wait in line to get the cup of coffee 2 minutes. So how is that because that's been part of your life, is always being able to make sacrifices?
Yeah. I think so one of the things that I always talk about is, again, I want to emphasize the fact that I love being in America, and I feel very patriotic, even though I was never born here. And then especially after marrying my husband, I just become so patriotic towards the United States. Now, in terms of the sacrifices, I see that here, I do feel that people complain a lot more easily. It's like they complain about mask wearing, they complain about this and that. It's like everything is like, I have a right to do this. And when we were back in Asia, it's not like we have the right to do, not that Hong Kong wasn't a free country, we had a lot of rights too, but at the same time, I think it was just that we expected there should be certain kind of restrictions, there should be some kind of rules, there should be something that's not allowing you to do some certain things, and just sacrifice ourselves for the greater goods. So I think that minds, again, that go back to the sacrifice that I have done myself, is that I understand I will have to, work a lot harder than other people. Going from like starting my school here, I have to pay a lot more than US residents, right? All the international students, we pay pretty much 10 times more than California residents for our tuition. So I have to work harder and I want to be able to finish my school faster. I need to make a little bit more money so that I can get by. It's constantly, and even all the way to finding a job, I have to go through a lot more interviews because people are not willing to hire me because I needed a visa. I needed a work visa. They didn't want to sponsor me. So in my book, I kind of detail about what I needed to do in order to land a job, even though I constantly having companies say that they really love my work ethics, they love my personality. But as soon as I said, sorry, but I need you to sponsor my work visa so I can stay, and they're like, sorry, never mind. We're gonna have to skip you. So I feel like it's constant being looked over because of our status. I'm not able to, just because we need a visa, just because we are not, we were not born here. So I think there's a lot of sacrifices that we have to make in order to succeed here in the United States. But then at the same time, United States gave us a lot of opportunities for us to do that too. And one thing I wanted to say is like, I feel as much as I was told that US has a lot of racism towards minority and immigrants, not that I never had that experience, I did, but I felt like that's part of the process. I just kind of like, well, then I just have to work harder to get it, to prove to other people that this is not going to stop me. So.
Good. To me, when I look at you, I see someone that is, what we call that American dream personified. To those of us born in the US, we take that American dream for granted. When and where did that become the focus of your life, when suddenly you set your sights on going to America?
When I felt like I had no other future rather than coming here, when I felt like in Asia, it was mostly because my parents went bankrupt at the time, and I was really trying to help them out, but I felt I didn't know what else I could do to help our family to have a better life. I know my parents worked really, really hard. They started a restaurant. They basically started their career from scratch again at the age of 47, 48, because their previous career just didn't work out. And so they had to relearn their life again. And for me, I felt like the only way I will have a good life is to come to America and to go to school, because we have a great educational system over here, and we have a lot of career opportunities. I always hear people say that in America, if you work hard, you will make it. I honestly, at the time, I didn't know anyone who made it here. And I just watched movies. I just heard these terms, American dreams. And that's all I cared about. Is like, that's a little dream that I could have. Instead of staying in Asia, the plan was to just get married off to somebody wealthy in the local town where my parents worked. It's like, that's not the life I wanted. I wanted to make it on my own. And then I strongly believe that America would be the way for me to do it.
Hey, how old were you at that time? Just curious.
When I came here, I just turned 18.
No, what I mean, but when you made that decision in your mind, that was your plan, because I know you're a planner.
Well, so honestly, I planned was around 17. That's when I started doing a lot of research on my own, because by that time I hit 17, a lot of my friends left already. That was a year before 1997. And a lot of my friends left Hong Kong because their parents sent them to US, to England, to Australia, everywhere. And I just didn't have that opportunity. It was never in the plan for me to come to the United States. I just kind of accepted the fact that I will be in Hong Kong forever, and all my friends were gone. Most of my friends were gone. But life, even though it was difficult, and then I was left alone at home when I was 16, my parents pretty much been gone. One of them was always gone to another country to work since I was 13 years old. So I just kind of accepted the fact that this is going to be my life. I'm not going to have that opportunity to be in another country, studying in another country. But again, go back to like when I saw how hard my parents worked, and then our life was going to be like, my life was just going to be like in that little town in Indonesia. I just felt like that's not going to be my future. I need to do something. I cannot let my fate to take me and then just like be happy where I am, because I'm not doing anything about it. So that's when I decided I have to take control of my life and then just do something. So literally at 17, after I moved there, maybe just a couple of months in, I already there was nothing in that town. There was no entertainment. Our only entertainment was just this one department store with the supermarket downstairs, some clothing stores upstairs, and an arcade on the top floor. That's it. That's the only entertainment we had. So I knew that if I want to, like be free and have a chance to be much bigger than what I was at the time, I have to leave. I had to leave.
Okay. So, it's when people see you, and of course, if they haven't read the book, they just see this successful lady. You hear something, oh yeah, it was tough to get here. But the reality is you hit the floor a few times pretty hard. You hit it really hard a couple times. And you maybe could share some of that and where and how you found the strength to pick yourself up again, because you see that theme all the time. It's not that you're going to take a shot and get knocked down. It is. The big difference is if you can get your butt back off the floor again. And I think, if anybody knows your story, they know that you've been slammed to the ground pretty hard a couple times, and maybe you can share some of those things and what you did to get over that.
I just feel like, which times are you talking about?
There was a few. So tell us which one you think was the hardest to come back from. Let's start with that one.
I honestly felt like in different stage of my life, it was always hard. One of the hardest part for me was probably, 10 years after I came to this country, I felt like I wasn't going anywhere and I was constantly really depressed. And then I got laid off because my company lost my paperwork. I couldn't really get my, get my visa back, and I couldn't come back to the country after I built my life and met John at the time. That was one of the toughest part. And I really believe that everything happens for a reason. So even though I was trying so hard and then nothing was working out at the time, the only thing that kept me going was the thought saying like, okay, everything happens for a good reason. I kept saying until now to my kids, like, every bad things happens is for a good reason. So don't give up. There's a reason why you're gonna have to go through this. And then later on you can talk about it and maybe share this with someone else who's going through the same thing. And that was one of the toughest part for me, was that I felt abandoned by everyone around me, the company that I worked for 4.5 years, who just saying like, sorry, you lost your paperwork. I don't care how much you have worked here. I don't care that, you sacrifice a lot for the company. We're not going to help you out. And then I had, at that time, that was the time when I knew who are my real friends, because there are some friends like, I don't want to get involved with this, helping her out. And they would walk away or ignore my request for help. But again, John at the time was the only person really night and day, just constantly helping me, trying to find a way back home, going back to like finding a way back home. That's when I really realized that he is really the right person for me, because it's not about just these romantic gestures, flowers, gifts. He's definitely not that kind of person, but he is a person who with action, and he cares about you. Another really, I think another incident that really hit hard for me is really when I went back to Asia back in 1998. That was my first time going back to Asia from United States. And I worked really hard to save up that money in order to go back to visit my parents. Then in Indonesia, we got hit with this biggest riots that against specifically Chinese people. That was due to the financial crisis. The whole country was in turmoil, and their currency was deflated 5 times. And the only person or people that they could blame on instead of their government, they actually blamed specifically Chinese for some reason. That was really a hard hit for me, because even a year after that incident, I went into depression. I had a lot of suicidal thoughts. It was just a lot of things, thinking about, you in Asia, you're still getting discriminated against. We were running away from all these rioters who killed, like looked for Chinese people to not just hurt, but to kill them. Witnessing that and then experience that and then escape from that, I thought it was really hard. It was definitely really hard because I think this is the part because not knowing if you will be able to come back, and then not knowing that if your my parents would ever, my dad especially at the time, would ever see us again during that riot where you're in the middle of this war zone. It's in this modern society, you just like kind of like can't believe people can hate each other so much. People can hate me so much. That's also probably another reason why coming to America, it's like, all right, there's some discrimination over here. So what? I've seen worse. It's like people literally try to kill us back in Asia. So now coming here, if I get certain comments about me, whether I can speak English or not, whatever it is, I don't care. That's nothing compared to what we had experienced before.
Yeah. So, this is kind of going to take off on that. Most people, when they look at you, they would think depression's nothing something that would ever affect, the perfect person that you are, that we see here on the screen. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about, because you, in the book, you went into it, you hit some pretty dark times there. And what was, what was the way out of that? Because that's something that myself personally, I don't know if I get that or not, but I know that so many people suffer from, depression, or they don't really know what's happening to them. But you, in your book, you were very, very open about what was happening to you and how that happened. So can you talk a little? I know that it might be tough to talk about, but I think, that's where you're the inspiration for people to show what, how a person could get past that.
Yeah. What I mentioned just now, that incident in Asia where witnessing all these killings that can hit me from time to time, I tried to bury that memory for a long time. But then, and I mentioned in the book, a year later, I came back to the United States, sound and safe. And then a year later, I went through this whole depression, being in a bad relationship, abusive relationship, and then having this, they call it anniversary effect, because, because of this traumatic experience. And I went to this depression. And like I said, it was like, I had suicidal thoughts. I tried to kill myself. Maybe, numerous times, so many times that I thought it's normal. I thought it was just part of life. Everybody goes through that. And so it is tough, but at the same time, I think the turning point for me was that the psychologist, she talked to me, and then she was like, immediately, one session, when I started crying, she was like, oh, you have depression. Let me just prescribe you with some medication, to help with that depression. Literally, I just met another girl who's told me that she's been taking these medication for many years now, and how it has been affecting her. And I just became one of those people who need medication in order to have a positive mindset. And I thought, that's not going to be my life. And so I literally, after she gave me that medication, I threw it away. When I got home, I was just like, I'm not going to let this define me. I need to somehow find a way to get away from all this negativity. And really, I think it's not like, oh, just because of that one incident, let me throw it away and I'm fine now. I detailed also in my book about, even once you start becoming, like, you're trying to find your way in this professional life, you're trying to find a way to succeed, and then you become a mother, and now your home is all messed up, and then you go into this negative thoughts again. It's like, in my book, I just constantly showing people that there's a lot of struggle mentally in order to get to a certain point, but every single time, and it's not just one time and then you can solve it. It's like every single time when I have these negative thoughts, what I needed to do in order to overcome it. And then it's funny, through this book, I think I put in a lot more thoughts into it. And now I can say that, yes, you have to have an acceptance in life in order to not feel like you're always in the worst situation than anyone else. I had to like interview people. I really want to just like, give me something, give me some kind of medicine so I can change my hormone in my body, in my brain, so I don't feel that way anymore. But then again, over and over and again, I just refuse to let something else take control of me. I want me to take control of myself. So I talked to other people. I found support group that I never really wanted to be a part of before, but and through acceptance, I learned that, you know, life is never going to be fair, and it is okay to not in the fair situation. You just have to move past it and then learn how to live with certain disadvantages. Because sometimes these disadvantages could be just temporary. And I feel like that really had helped me. Like, as soon as I realized that, that has changed the trajectory of my life to be so much better. Now I can talk to people who don't look just like me. I can actually be around people and have confidence around people. So yeah.
That's good. Thank you. So let's talk about your parents now. I get the impression when I was reading the book that you were closer to your mom, but your father was the one that you felt you had to impress.
Yeah, I mean, I think in any, I hear that a lot too, even now. It's like everybody's always talking about like, oh, my father was so strict, and my father is like this, you know, like they are just a much bigger mean person that you're scared of. And it's true. I mean, I think looking at my parents, both of them have a lot of influence in me. I would say my dad has more influence in me and about my mindset, how I treat people, the ethics standard. That's where he instilled those kind of mindsets into me. My mom is more like the entrepreneur side of her. It's just kind of like, you have to be creative. You have to be able to move around situation, even though when the economy is bad, you need to learn how to survive even when the economy is bad, and be creative about it. And my father, and my parents, I would say, they at the point, they also don't have the best relationship for many years, talking about decades. And because of financial stress, financial stress in our family. And then that, that's when it really hit me, when I saw that how financial stress can affect my family life. I love my parents so much that when they decided one day, even though I know they were not happy with each other and that they decided to get a divorce, I was really broken. I think I just felt the world collapsed, and I could not accept that reality. And I felt like it was my dad abandoning us at the time. Long story short is that they stayed together at the end until now. If you see them now, you wouldn't have never thought that they had gone through this decades of hardships and that kind of relationship with each other. Is really, I think my mom had taught me something about how to be a woman, how to be a wife, how to be a mother. Obviously, I look up to her a lot because she's a woman. I feel like I need to learn from her. One thing she always say that, remember, women, we are the neck. Even though the men, your husband, is the head of household, but it does need the neck in order to turn. So we are the neck of the household. And I always think about that. And I was like, that is so true. And she was like, if you want your husband to change, you got to change yourself first. You can never rely on or demand your husband to change. If you don't change yourself, your husband cannot change. And that's coming from somebody who used to fight with her husband all the time. And I think that's what she learned. And then now, if you look at both of them, you would never thought that they had gone through so many years of hardships.
We have a saying here that women marry men thinking they'll change, men marry women thinking they won't over there. So, but I'm gonna let you off that easy on that. Long story short, I want you to tell us about slapping your dad and what the impact was that.
So yes, I was trying to skip that part when I was
Oh, you
mentioning.
were. I know you.
Yeah, and so yeah, when my father basically announced that he's leaving, they were going to get a divorce and he's going to be leaving, it was just so shocked for me that I, like when you try to get attention from somebody and then they were not listening and you just wanted to change that whole situation. And then knowing that, I'm still shaking right now thinking about it, but knowing that my father was just this person that you can never disrespect. You cannot even raise your voice we used to talk to him, right? We couldn't even close the door a little bit too hard and he'd be like, you're being disrespectful. But in order for me, I feel like I need to get into him. I just, in his face, I slapped him. I slapped him. And you can imagine my father was just so upset and then looked back at me and he was just like ready to, slap me back, but he never did. And I think that moment maybe that was the moment why my parents or saw how much it hurt me. And I don't know if that was just a little bit more selfish from my point, is that it's great, I kept them together at that moment, but then they were miserable for many years. However, again, go back to now, they're in their 70s and they cannot live without each other, and they take care of each other so well that I feel like I have a lot to learn from them, is that life or marriage is never going to be easy. It's never going to be easy. You are marrying somebody who's coming from a completely different way of life. It's going to be hard, and we just have to learn how to navigate around it. And I think my mom really changed the way she talked, changed the way she's around him, and they get along a lot better now. I mean, not saying 100%, but that's marriage, right? Marriage can never be 100% happy.
Yeah, I thought it was, as they talk about slapping some sense into somebody, right? Is that what you were doing there?
Well, I feel like sometimes you just lost of words. You don't know what to say, and it's not the right way. I would never ever say that's the right way to solve a problem and to get somebody's attention. But I think at that time, I was only 16, 17, that was the only way I knew how to get my father's attention.
In the book there was a part where you wrote about at going to, I think it was the CCIM meetings, how people started to notice you after you made a significant transaction. And what I thought was interesting about that is, I don't track the type of deals you did, so I didn't have any, I didn't know if you made a deal since day one. My question is really to you, do you think it really was that the other people saw you differently because of the deal, or that the greater self-confidence that you started showing really was what people saw?
That's a really good question, because I think at the moment, I felt like it was because of the deal. It was because of the transaction. But at the same time, because of the transaction, I probably had a little bit more self-confidence. I mean, it's kind of intertwined. I don't know which one's first. It could be because, hey, I feel like now I have something to prove myself. So people see that confidence in me and they want to talk to me. Or maybe some people do see like, oh, wait, well, she knows what she's doing now. So now I want to talk to her a little bit more. I mean, I mentioned in the book was that the first time I showed up at the CCI meeting, I was just kind of like, oh, it's all guys over here, all men, and there was no Asian. It was just kind of shocking to me. Maybe there was one other one, maybe it was Tim Trent, but that was like a couple meetings down before I even saw him there. But I knew I was very uncomfortable. I was super uncomfortable. But I just thought, hey, if I want to get some respect, I better keep going. I got to keep going.
Well, I'll share with you from my standpoint, it wasn't a transaction you did. It's with self-confidence that you started showing that makes a difference to people, because I think you do find that people are attracted to self-confidence. And is like to say there's a difference between self-confidence and cocky.
Yeah.
So cocky is when you're acting like you know what you're doing. Self-confidence is when you know what you're doing. And you could be acting the same way, but I think really for you, my humble opinion, it was the self-confidence, because that does attract people, because people want to be around people that they feel that person feels they know what they're doing. And there's plenty of people to do transactions that are good transaction that don't necessarily generate that feeling of self-confidence.
You're right about that. And I was interviewed a few times, always talking about like diversity and all that stuff, right? Breaking the barriers within CCIM and all that stuff. And then they said, oh, what can we do more to help with this diversity in our industry? I was like, to me, I mean, just keep talking about it. But at the same time, for me, the way I see it is that we ourselves have to accept, again, is the word acceptance again. It's like we ourselves have to be the one allowing other people to accept us. If we don't let you guys see us, let other people see us, then people are not going to see us. So we just have to be allowing other people to accept us. I feel like sometimes I mentioned, sometimes I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, let me just hang out with only Asians, or let me just hang out with only women. That's not how I want to be. I want to let everyone we all have the same interest. Let's just be together. I'm not going to be saying like, I'm only going to be part of this group, part of that group. I just want to be a group where everyone is together without this whole categorization of who you are, what you look like, and things like that.
So it seems that, there were points in your life where the actions of one or two people had a huge impact. Sometimes that was good, sometimes it was bad. I'm going to ask you about what you do, what do you consider the turning points in your life? And I'm going to jump out in the front and just tell you, I myself personally, when I look at your life and I read your life, and then I tell you, your spreadsheet was all wrong on husband, because what you needed was a rock in your life to set a foundation, because you had so much turmoil, and you ended up with a guy that really, he's a battlefield commander, so he probably had a little experience of taking on Helen Chong in the battle there. But I know John's probably going to be one of them in there. But what are what points where it was like somebody did something? I think you had a counselor or a psychologist or somebody jumped in one time and did an intervention for you, or there were times. So can you point that out to some people, like how one person can make a difference on other people's lives?
Oh gosh, there's just so many. But life is not just about one incident that happens to you, right? The one that you mentioned is that it was this one doctor I was just seeing for a cold, and then she noticed my cuts on the wrists, and she had that awareness and told my boyfriend at that time to go up. We need some privacy. And then she asked me questions and made me sign, a contract. Literally, it was a handwritten contract, and say like, you would never do this again. If you ever have suicidal thoughts, you will call this hotline or call me. And it was just kind of like, who's this person that cares about me? You just never know, even as a stranger. Just these kind of act of kindness can change somebody's life. Literally, I think from that point on, that's when I stopped hurting myself, stopped cutting myself. But before that, I thought it was normal. It's like, you're sad, you hurt yourself, you want to kill yourself. Who doesn't do that? That's what I thought. But that was something, that was very, I guess, like, she, in a way, she saved my life. And I don't remember who she is. I don't even remember a name. I just know that I randomly went to a doctor for a cold, and that's what she did for me. There's just so many people in my life, in every different aspect of my life, that had made that change. And I think that's why it's so important sometimes that we need these support group. I mean, again, go back to my husband, have definitely changed me as a person, constantly beating me about why are you having such low self-confidence? You need to have more confidence. You need to have more confidence. You can do this. And somebody who, like me, I feel everything, like feel people's pain. I feel people's happiness. I feel this and that. And he's very calm. He's very even keel. And I'm just like, I needed that. I cannot be with another person who just as, big of an emotion as me. So he brought me down to where I realized that, yeah, I need to focus on how to become a better me, that I can take care of myself. Even though I would love to take care of other people, but I have to take care of myself first. So I would say John had made a huge impact on my life too. And by also me, myself, by being able to get away from all these abusive relationships before, and then seeing, wow, a healthy relationship looks like this is a big thing for me to learn. It's like, life doesn't have to be this hard. It can be good if you set the priority right. You really find the right person to be around yourself.
I hope you've updated your criteria for the spreadsheet then.
No more criteria.
So we're almost out of time here, but I want to ask you the really important question. What's your plans for the future? Because, what you've done in the past, that's just history.
Oh, I feel like a person cannot be happy if you don't constantly improving and have new goals. I feel like I have really achieved a lot in the past few years. I learned to be proud of myself also, instead of, back then we also have this Asian culture is like, never be proud of yourself. You're never good enough. And that was also one of the contributing factor to cause me having such low self-confidence, because you can never be happy about yourself. Now I learned to be happy about myself, but reminding myself that we are somebody always constantly need to improve and have bigger goals. So right now I feel like I'm in this developmental stage where I want to help a lot of other people who are in a disadvantaged positions, or the underdogs, I call them, who, for example, I'm building my team where most of them came in with absolutely no real estate experience. They are the ones that most other companies like, no, I need somebody who have experience already, so we don't have to handhold them. I have a soft spot for that. I love seeing them grow. I love seeing, they are the reason why I'm working so hard, is because I want to see them succeed as well. So I feel like right now I'm in a stage where I just want to continue to mentor other people to help them grow in their business, because when they make it, makes me so happy. How much is it? I don't really talk about how much money we make and how much production we do. I always say that it's really about the purpose of our work, of our life, and that makes us successful. So yeah.
When are you going to run for office?
Gosh. Eric, well, we can talk about that in another decade or so.
Now, I was asked, I don't know if we have any time left. Terry can jump in and let me know if we want to have any questions from our studio audience here. Terry, let me know on the time frame on that. If there is, if someone wants to ask a question, why don't you type it in and we'll see if we can answer it on that.
Okay, we're entertaining questions. If anyone would like to learn some more about Helen, I've got one. You mentioned both in your book and earlier today that you basically brought your work ethic with you from Asia. But I'm still and having worked with you now for several years, I'm still totally flabbergasted by the amount that you're able to accomplish in the course of a day. A mother to 3 young kids, a wife, head of a company, all of your volunteer activities with CCIM. Any tips for time management for the rest of us?
Oh gosh, if you know my calendar, it's always, all my calls are scheduled. I can't have these unexpected calls. But time management, I feel like I have already have this time blocking. I know this time to this time is going to be all for my family. But then I have a certain time that's for my team, and then certain time for transactions, and certain time is for my volunteering work. So everything is scheduled on my calendar. Honestly, it's and then we have another calendar, of course, about my kids as well. Our kids' activities, they do basketball, baseball, swimming, and what else? It's like I don't even know. And dance, ballet, art. It's like so much going on. My calendar is my life. I can't live without it.
So you think it's organization that allows you to do as much as you do?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the time management wise, it's like organizing my life, organizing everything, down to like every half hour what I'm gonna do. I'm not one of those who saying like, you know what, I would do this many calls or this many, I don't know, like talk to this many prospects. Mine is more like big items, like, okay, this time to this time is all going to be about my team member, or this time to this time is all about my family. So yes, organization, I think it applies to anything about your home, your time, even how you decorate your house. I guess it's like, if you're organized, you can do a lot more. And I always say that no matter how many kids you have, even if you're single, you will always say that you're busy, right? It doesn't matter how many kids you have. Everybody is busy. It's just about how to time block.
Okay, we have a question from Celine Simon. Who do you want to play you in a movie?
Never thought about that. That is too funny, Celine. Actually, Celine and I, we work together. That is too funny. I don't know who do I want to play me in a movie. Never thought about that, but I want to play Jennifer Aniston. I love her. I love her. She's really amazing in the morning show. But I'm reading Celine asking what is the biggest takeaway. I want readers to get off my book. I really want people, that's really the main thing about the power to change lives, is that you are the one, yourself is the power to change your own life. It's like your mindset. The mindset is so important. So I hope that people, because I just hear too many people complain, oh, it was because my life was like this, because my parents were like this, always blaming their past. It's like, instead of blaming your past, let's turn that into your own power and change your life about it.
Piggybacking on that question, were there any journalists or celebrities that were particularly inspiring to you? Thinking like Amy Tan or Helen Chong or Lisa Ling. Anyone who stands out?
Journalist. Journalist, not really, but I've been reading I like reading autobiography, and oh my goodness, now I'm drawing a blank. The CEO, former CEO of PepsiCo. Gosh, what is her name? I was reading her book, and she was also an immigrant from Asia, and then how she became the head Indra Nui. Indra Nui, she's really my idol right now. I loved reading her book, talk about how she came here as an immigrant, even she sometimes have to wear her traditional dress to interview. And it was just very, very interesting about her life and how she made it to where she is today.
It looks like we have a question that someone was asking, what advice would you give to a new agent? Best advice you could tell them right up front. We know what that plug is already, but you can go ahead.
What do you think it is?
Yeah, join CCIM. Isn't that the best advice you can give to an agent starting?
Well, for commercial real estate agents, for sure. And Lindsay is actually also one of our superstar at Helen. She came in with no real estate experience whatsoever, but she's kicking butt. I'm seriously, I would say, honestly, you have, for new agents, the best piece of advice is that never give up. I always say, it's never going to be easy in real estate. People always think like, oh gosh, look at people, they make so much money. I'm like, man, you don't see 80% of the people don't make it in this industry. And people literally give up within the first year, and that's it. I was like, the first year is just seedings. You're just putting seeds out there, and then hopefully, you can start harvesting in the second, third year. So the first year, if you give up, and that's it, it's the end of your career. Unfortunately, if you have waited and really learn from a mentor, watch what they do, shadow somebody, you will learn so much that it's not just, things just don't happen to you. I had a guy who called me. I was like, hey, I'm a part-time agent. I just wanted to make some commission doing some deals. And I'm just like, I'm not gonna take you in, because this is not a part-time work that you can succeed in real estate. And if you think that you just want to make some easy money, I don't want you to be part of this company.
Good. I think, Terry, is that all our time we have for Helen today?
Yes, I think it's time to wrap things up. Let's remind everyone that on December the 14th, we have our annual holiday luncheon. Helen will be giving her swan song, and I hope we hear some of the same advice and wisdom that she imparted on us today. It'll be a luncheon at Sequoia Country Club, our first return to a major live event, and you're all invited to join us. We'll have music, door prizes, wine, and we'll swear in the 2022 leadership team and acknowledge some of the old timers like Eric here. So join us on the 14th. Watch your email for the invitation. And with that, thank you all for joining us. And we'll hope to see you soon. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Helen.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Very, very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.